That means his mom sent him to the landlord, and the landlord had his way with him 2 days a month, and then they got free rent. He thought every kid did that because he'd been doing it since he was 5 years old. There are books out there that are available to individuals that are bad individuals that teach you how to get a child from the foster care system at a very young age. It says no penetration until they're 5. You lose the value of your product. If you're buying sex from a child, I don't care what you identify as, and I don't care what color your skin is or what nationality you are or how much money you make. I want you to go to prison. She was wrecked when she saw those little girls. It's just a slow driving car, and the girls get in, they go down the street, what they're doing, whatever in the back seat, and they get out and they go back to the first of the line, and it's like an all day. It's horrible. You sell that 10-year-old to me and I'll give you $100 or $500. I want them dressed in Minnie Mouse clothes. I want whatever.
Stop it.
I'm giving you complete examples of what our law enforcement partners, and I read those exact words between a perpetrator and a guy that was selling a 10-year-old. A.G. Bonta is $25 million. Go get Trump. That's basically what the legislation says. God gave us a total global reset. It's not just a reset for the United States, it's a global reset.
Shannon Grove is a true Californian, born and raised in San Joaquin Valley, Kern County. Missis Grove served in the U.S. Army and was stationed in Frankfurt, Germany in late 1980s. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
She is also the first woman veteran elected to California Assembly. In 2022, Grove was elected as a California state senator, and after 2 years of serving, she introduced Assembly Bill SB 1414, which increased penalties for child sex traffickers. Missis Shannon is a mother of 5, grandma of 11, a wife and a woman of God. She also calls herself the gun-carrying, tongue-talking, spirit-filled believer.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
So let's go back to November 4th, 2024.
Okay.
What would you say the state of the United States of America was back in that day?
On November 4th, 2024?
Correct.
I think it was a time for shift and a time for change. And I think that the people spoke and they definitely made the right choice. I think that what's happened in the last 30 days or so, even after the inauguration, I think that individuals are excited and happy that America is back as a global leader, and America is also back here for the United States.
So do you think after November 5th and especially January 20th, a lot of things have changed?
A lot of things.
Do you feel it?
Oh, absolutely feel it. I think there's hope. I think people are excited. I think people like the fact that there's decisions being made that put America first, that put the global peace first. And you got to understand that I don't think we would ever be in these situations that are going on overseas with wars and things like that if President Trump was in office when it happened. But he is definitely bringing people to the table to resolve those issues expeditiously.
So would you say that on November 5th, America dodged a Marxist bullet?
I would say on November 5th, electing President Trump was the greatest thing that we've been able to do for our country in a long time. And I think that God gave us a total global reset. It's not just a reset for the United States, it's a global reset.
We've got 3 branches of government, right? So judicial is the one that interprets the law. We've got legislative that creates the law and executive that enforces the law. What is... in executive order, you've got the president, the vice president, and 15 cabinet members. So 15 cabinet members are just like the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, etc., right?
Yes. Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Defense, Intelligence.
15 of them.
Yeah, and then also like Bobby Kennedy is the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So in order to, the president nominates, and in order to, for them, the nominees to get approved, you have to have a minimum 51 votes from senators, correct?
You do, but it's actually just an advised consent. So they shouldn't really stop. I mean, the president has the right to pick the cabinet of his choice, and
without the help of Senate.
Well, they have to have the help. But it's an advise and consent role. Like they ask the questions, but they should consent to allowing the president to have whatever cabinet members he wants.
So you want to tell me that in 2021, Rachel Levine, Sam Brinton got more than 50 votes from the Senate?
No, it should be advise and consent. It should be, is what I'm saying.
But those people weren't.
They weren't. So
they didn't get more than 50 senators' votes.
Yes, you're correct.
And they were approved.
So it should be an advise and consent role. So like if you come and say, treat it like a marriage, right? You go to your parents, you say, hey, I love this woman, I'm going to marry her. And your parents are like, oh, that's great. Can we meet her? Can we talk to her? And they shouldn't be able to tell you. I mean, they can tell you no, but they shouldn't tell you no because it's your choice of who, so the president of the United States should have a choice of who he's surrounding himself in leadership, and who he chooses should be affirmed. There are times when both parties won't affirm the president's choice for those cabinet positions. But if you look at the language, it's an advise and consent role. It's not a stop and block role. It's an advise and consent role.
So what happens, for instance, if the Senate does not approve Bobby Kennedy?
That's going to be very disappointing.
So he still is going to be the head of HHS?
I think that they can do certain things for that. They can put him, I don't know. So I actually work in the state government and not the federal government.
Correct.
So I don't have all the rules in the top of my head. But I would hope, and I think that we're not going to have a problem there. I think it's going to be a tight vote. We've already had the vice president step in and cast the final vote for another individual that the cabinet that President Trump picked. And if Bobby Kennedy is that tight, I'm sure the vice president will step in again and make sure he gets confirmed.
Because there are a lot of rumors that Kennedy and Tulsi, maybe even Kash Patel, are not going to be confirmed. But at the same time, Rachel Levine was confirmed.
Exactly.
Sam Brinton, really? Yes. Head of the nuclear waste?
Yes.
Really?
And they're really worried about, the other side is really worried about who we're picking, or the president has picked for these positions, but yet they confirmed individuals who steal luggage, who dress in women's clothing, who, and Rachel Levine running this, United States military. Pete Hegseth is by far going to make sure that we're a war-fighting machine is what the military is supposed to do. The military is not a DEI organization. The military is not like everybody belongs. The military is the fighting machine that protects this country and keeps us all safe and brings balance and safety and security to the world.
So once President Trump was sworn in, he got to sign a lot of executive orders, right?
Like 100 or something in one day.
Yes.
Yeah, in the arena, I think he was signing it, and they would call it off, and he'd flip it over, and he'd sign it, and call it off, and flip it over. There were hundreds.
But executive order is not a law.
It's not a law. It's an executive order. It's a will and consent of the president, and he can do it until it's challenged in court, until he's told to stop, if that makes sense. Also,
he signs an executive order, and if the judges are okay with that, so it becomes kind of a law.
It's not just the judges. It's that, so say he's like right now, a couple of days ago, he signed the no men in women's sports,
correct,
which is something I completely support. So he did an executive order. It is not law, but there will be lawsuits challenging that executive order. And if the courts side on behalf of the people who filed the lawsuit or the president, then it's kind of decided that way. But with all the momentum that's going on, the Congress can still go through and solidify that into code. The Congress can pass a piece of legislation that solidifies that executive order.
Where do you think California will go with that executive order?
I think California, based on the last 30 days that we've been here, the Democrats just authorized $50 million, $25 million to Bonta, taxpayer dollars, to AG Bonta to file lawsuits against the Trump administration, and $25 million to protect undocumented illegal immigrants. And they refuse to take amendments on severe criminal, the criminal portion of that, like rapists, murderers. And we're like, you can't use taxpayer dollars to defend. You can't. Now, I get it from the point of, I think everybody should come to this country legally. There's a mechanism to come to this country, but we do have people here. And the fear that some of the more reasonable Democrats are bringing up is somebody goes to work and they get picked up, and there's no document that says these are the people who take care of my kids until I can get back or get my kids back with me. So there is stuff that the immigrants do need to know in case something does happen. But the Democrats wouldn't even allow amendments to take place that, criminal people, in Trinidad people that were just committing, rapes. The person that killed Kate Steinle, in illegal possession of a firearm. Officer Singh, who was driving down the road, saw a drunk driver, pulled him over. That person was illegally driving on our highways with no driver's license. That person was illegal in the country, illegally in possession of a firearm, and shot and killed that officer. If that person, Officer Singh, who came here legally from a different country, and he grew up watching Cops, bad boys, and he came here and wanted to be a police officer so bad, and he got on the force, and he saw somebody driving drunk. That officer would be alive today if that illegal criminal alien that had an illegal firearm, driving on our roads, drinking and driving, violating our laws, was not here. That officer would still be alive.
So what happens if California says no to this executive order? The federal funding can be stopped. What does it mean? So if I pay taxes here in California as a resident of California, where do my taxpayers' money go to?
So some of it goes to the federal government and some of it goes to the state government. And yes, the
federal...
What
about percentage-wise?
I don't know the exact percentage-wise, but you do pay federal taxes and state taxes, and it does go. And we get probably 1/3 of our budget comes from the federal government.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of money. So right now I believe that DOJ is exposing, and they're doing an investigation on the high-speed rail that was passed by the voters 2008 or something, I believe. And it was supposed to cost $33 billion, be built by 2020, and we were supposed to be we were in a high-speed train 120 miles an hour from San Francisco to Los Angeles. That didn't happen. They don't even have all the, it's such a disaster and such in disarray. It is like Europe has Stonehenge. We have rail hinge. Like there's these big cement things when I drive up 99, like just big cement. And then then it just stops. And then there's another bridge and it stops. They haven't even acquired all the land. So it's just a disaster. They said the last estimate I saw was $133 billion.
$133 billion?
Is what it's going to take to complete it. And it was authorized for $30 billion in the ballot measure.
But that's a budget of a good country. Yeah. Yearly budget.
Yeah, so that's the budget that they have for that. And it was supposed to be finished by 2020. And you're supposed to be riding in it right now. Like instead of driving 5 hours, I could be in Sacramento in, 35 minutes instead of driving.
Percentage-wise, how many percents are completed of this?
I think there's...
One digit?
Yeah, no, not even. I think it's like 4 miles, and it's supposed to be. I can look it up for you, but it's like very minimal, and it's not consistent. So they might have a half a mile, and then a break for a mile, and then a half a mile, and a break for a mile, and then a mile, and break for 3 miles, because they still haven't acquired all the land, and it started in the Central Valley.
And no one bats an eye.
Doesn't bat an eye. The Republicans in our caucus have requested audits, requested the auditor and controller to audit the high-speed rail. We've asked for estimates. We've asked for all kinds of data. Who's getting paid? Who are the consultants? Which are all friends of the Democrat Party and the governor. If you do dig deep, you can find out that the consultants are all connected to the Democrat Party. Or former legislators. And
they earned a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Since 2018.
Yeah, since 2008, I think it started.
2008?
That's when it
almost
passed.
20 years.
Yes.
In the making.
That's when, I think the ballot measure passed in 2008. I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but I could be.
So if California does not go with this executive order of Trump's, with the Title IX especially, so they can get their funding cut?
Yes.
What does it mean for California?
That means that the federal government isn't going to be sending us 1/3 of the money that we use, and they'll have to figure out a way to figure it out. I think with Trump and Gavin Newsom, President Trump and Governor Newsom, they're each going to, I don't want to say puff their chest, but Trump will win. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I mean, the governor says, I'm Trump-proofing California. And he got real big and bold on that. And then, 24 hours later, he's like, I'm not going to throw a spoke in the wheel and stop it. I'm going to, we want to work with the administration where we can. Because I think somebody got a phone call. I don't know. I would think somebody got a phone call and they said, hey, we give you 1/3 of your budget, and so I don't know. But I do know he was in D.C. meeting with all lawmakers, and I think he may have met with the president as well. I know he met with him a little bit on the tarmac here when the president came on the fire issue.
So the worst thing that president of the United States can do to a governor is just to cut the funding?
No, so we can get federal funding that's cut. There's also California, if you look at it and you have an overlay, a tremendous amount of lands from California are owned by the federal government. They're federal lands. So like when the governor, for instance, I represent the top 3 food producing counties in the world, and I used to represent in the world. Kern, Tulare, and Fresno are the top 3 food producing counties in the world.
What are the other 2?
The other 2 what?
Number 1 and number 2.
It's all in my district. Number 1 is Kern, number 2 is Fresno, and number 3 is Tulare.
In the world?
In the world.
Oh, wow.
All three of them are right here. And the governor chooses to cut off water and not allow us to have our surface water, and we have a hard time growing food. The world should be concerned that California's food production is not like it used to be. The world should be concerned, specifically the United States, that right out here west of us is the Sunset Midway Field and Belridge Field, which is a huge oil field. There's 33 billion barrels of oil that are under that ground, and 9 billion is accessible to us. A couple of years ago, we got 4,000 permits to drill the oil to keep energy here for Californians by Californians, and we got 21 permits last year. The oil industry has been decimated by Governor Gavin Newsom. They are choosing to import oil from Iraq. I'm sure the $25 billion we sent to Iraq last year to purchase oil that we use every day, because Californians still use 1.8 million barrels of oil. And I'm sure, I'm being sarcastic, right? So if it gets transcribed in a writing, they use that to build parks, right? Give me a break. They're using that money that we send them. They bring it over here by ship. So carbon emissions, carbon intensive, they bring these big ships over there. They circle outside our ports, like down in Newport. They circle, Long Beach. They circle outside our ports, and as soon as they come into port, they burn clean fuel. CARB, California Air Resources Board, only counts the carbon emissions from that clean burning fuel, not point of origin to point of destination. So carbon emissions are way out the window that they don't even count. And they won't even let us drill for oil hill, put it in a pipeline, send it down to PBF, and produce gasoline that we use every day here. They have decimated the oil industry. They have made us rely on foreign countries. They were paying Russia just 4 years ago $7 billion.
For what?
Oil. We were buying Russia oil from Californians bought Russian oil just before they invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's good. You use other countries' oil reserve. Once they got depleted, you're going to use your own.
Okay, but I think it creates a domestic security threat. Like, what if Russia says, or Iraq, or we get them from Ecuador, we get oil from Ecuador, Colombia, Guyana, they bulldoze down the rainforest, right? So it's the most natural sequestration site in the world. It's like considered the world's lung. We don't bulldoze down trees and, move indigenous Indians out of their homes. We don't do open air flaming like they do in Iraq. They're the highest open air flaming, causes cancer. We stopped doing that back in the 50s.
Really?
Yeah, we stopped doing that back in the 50s. So we have the cleanest energy production in the entire world under the strictest regulatory requirements, and our governor chooses not to produce energy here to create jobs here and give domestic security here. He imports it from foreign countries that are number one. Iraq just allowed men to marry 9-year-olds. I met your 4-year-old son today. If you had a daughter, almost 6. Okay. So if you had a daughter that's 9, and you lived in Iraq and they were allowed to, it's absurd.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's absurd. And to have that kind of policy is absurd. And it's not that and he's like, we're transitioning clean energy. We're not transitioning. We're just transitioning off of American oil to foreign oil, which is dirtier produced. They bulldoze down the rainforest. They have no oil spill control. They let it run into the rivers and the streams. It's almost damaged the national park that they have down there. I think it's Guyana who raked in, $5 billion. They're just excited that their country's booming for the oil revenues, and we're losing revenues. Like I said, and we have it right here in this district.
What happens to those countries like Russia or Iraq if you stop buying the oil? It's going to cut their budgets.
Oh, well, too bad.
Big time.
So what?
Yeah, but if they are our enemies, it's good for us.
Yes.
Not to spend billions of dollars
yes.
buying some products of theirs.
Well, last I checked, Russia wasn't really friendly with us. They invaded a sovereign country. Our policies that fund those things in California, like our policies in California that fund those things, we shouldn't take part in that. Like, Californians have better values than that. We shouldn't take part in funding a country that would invade another country. My oil producers never invaded another country. They've never hanged people on site because of their ideology. They've never allowed bride marriage at 9 years old. They're just hard workers that want to produce oil and energy here for the people of the state of California that use it. And our oil production also, we provide it to Arizona and New Mexico and Arizona. So you have a negative impact on those states as well.
Let's go to the agriculture, since we've touched that a little bit.
Sure.
So every time I go to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, I got those billboards. That is, Newsom, stop wasting our dam water.
Yes.
What does it mean?
So we have a lot of water that comes from Northern California to Southern California, and we built a conveyance system. The end users, like the farmers, the ranchers, the people who use the product in the end, like the end user, they paid for a water conveyance system. But because of the Delta smelt, which is the fish that President Trump and everybody's talking about, it lives in the Delta. It's a non-indigenous fish, but it has to have fresh water, and it'll die if you mix salinity. So
but it's not a joke, right? It's true. Just because of a few fish?
No, it's true. That's so funny that you did that, because when we had the fires, I had people call me from DC that are my friends. It's like, is this true? I saw this on the media, and I saw it on social media. There's no way you guys didn't have water in that reservoir. And I'm like, no, there was no water in the reservoir.
And the reason is the fish.
No, not for the reservoir. So the Delta smelt is in the Delta, and it's a non-indigenous species. It didn't originate there, but it dies if it has salt water. So they have to put enough fresh water out to push it out to the ocean to keep the salt water from coming in, to keep the Delta smelt alive. But when you think about it, you want to make sure there's not salinity in the bay. It's a balanced approach. You have to balance it, because if there's salinity in the bay, it gets in the conveyance system and it comes down to farmers, and you can't grow.
Correct.
So it is a balance, but I think that there is a lot of water wasted, a lot of outflows, meaning that goes out to the ocean, or a lot of water wasted that we don't capture because of the governor's policies, that would make it better for farmers, growers, ranchers, Los Angeles to be able to fill their reservoirs if we managed water correctly. But we don't manage water correctly. The State Water Resources Control Board will issue, for instance, it's so bureaucratic, right? So when they get ready to release water from Northern California to Southern California, the farmers will pay a fine of whatever it is, $10,000, to pull that water out without a permit, because it takes 6 or 8 months to get a permit, but by then the water's gone. So they'd rather pay the fine, get the water, grow the crop, feed the people.
How are you supposed to grow the crop without any water?
You can't. I mean, trick question? No, you can't.
But
they're importing food. We get a lot of our food from Venezuela. We get it from Mexico. And California has the ability to produce energy to keep us safe, right? And to not fund global issues that are negatively impacting the world. And we also have the ability to grow the food, to grow our food. But they have so many regulatory issues and laws regarding our food production. If you haven't met with a food producer, I can set you up with people. I have some of the largest pistachio growers in the world that were paying $10,000 a day fines.
A day?
A day, every day, to the California Air Resources Board. They were fined because they were using gas generators to keep their product cool, so they could get it shipped to Costco's and Albertsons and Safeways. They could get it shipped. They bag it, they pick it, they let it sit, they clean it, they do all that, they shell it, then they put it in a bag and it goes to wherever you buy your product, right? A lot of stores. And they were paying that because they were required to use electric equipment and electric forklifts because of the green new technology stuff and the green energy plan that the governor has. But PG&E and the IOUs won't connect power to them, so they have to gas generate, electrify the product the storage facilities and the forklifts and all that stuff. They have to be able to power them, so they plug them into gas generators at night to charge them, and they were getting fined for using gas generators, but they wouldn't be able to function without any power, and they can't get power from PG&E.
Why doesn't PGE does not connect them to the
they
power?
have like a 3, 4, 5 year wait, 2, 3, 4, 5 year wait to be able to connect to power when it's a major power source.
How is it possible? It's California. It's 2025. This is the center of the world. You have to wait for 5 years to get connected to the electricity?
Sometimes.
It's not the 18th or 19th century.
I know, but sometimes that is absolutely true. A lot of our office calls for constituent services here in this office is PG&E in Southern California, Edison. I've been waiting 2 years. I've been waiting 4 years. They haven't done this. I have an ARCO AMPM that just called the other day in the Fresno area, and they've been waiting 3 years to be able to, and it's been built. It's got gas. It's ready to go. It just doesn't have any power. And they're been waiting for PG&E to get power so that business owner who made that significant investment to provide jobs in the community and provide a lower cost fuel to the people who need it in the Central Valley is not being able to open his store because he doesn't have power.
What's the reason of having this amount of regulations here in California?
It's a negative impact. I mean, when you go to Texas, for instance, you can get an oil permit from the Department of Railroad to put a straw in the ground, but a pipe in the ground to produce oil, sell it, and create lower fuel costs. I mean, I went to
In
Texas.
what time?
In 2 days.
Really?
Yeah, in 2 days.
And here, for instance?
Years. As a matter of fact, like I said earlier, in 2024, they only issued 21 permits. That's it. That's all they issued, 21 permits. 4 years ago, they issued almost 4,000. But now they're not issuing it. They have to go through CEQA. They have to go to a regulatory process, got it lab tested. And what's interesting, if you go out to the oil fields on the west side that we have here, there's thousands of wells, kind of like the dots in this carpet, like thousands. I can't even tell you how many. There's thousands. As far as the eye can see, nothing but wells, drilling wells out there. But to put one right next to it, 30 feet away, you have to wait years for a permit. You have to do a water test, water aquifer test. It's the same water aquifer. It's the same area. It's the same location. It's the same field. And they make you go through that whole process and wait years for the well. It's just 50 feet away from another well and 50 feet away from another well.
Was it always like that? Or
No, it was not.
what has changed? And when?
Gavin Newsom.
Really?
Yeah.
I love him.
Do you? Good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Amazing governor.
Yeah.
I'm just very happy that this is his last term.
Oh.
I just hope he's going to become the president of the U.S.
Oh, I disagree with you, but okay.
That was a sarcasm.
Good.
But if Kamala becomes the governor of California and he becomes the president of the U.S.,
then we will all be in the situation or more that California will. You look at homelessness. Governor spent $25 billion or $24 billion on homelessness, and it got worse. It got worse. $24 billion.
so you're a businesswoman, right?
Yes.
Let's say you hire a CEO,
Yes.
and the CEO in 6 to 7 years destroys your company, right? You had 30 billion surplus, now you have 70 billion deficit,
Yes.
and you don't fire him.
That's
see?
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous, right?
And
But-
you don't create water policy that allows, you're so catered to the environmentalists. Like, do I think that every home or every business would have been saved in Palisades if these other things would have been done? No. But we wouldn't have had it. Fire takes 3 things: an ignition, a fuel, and oxygen. But there was so much fuel on the ground, dead brush, dead trees, beetled out trees, brush everywhere, no home hardening. There was no, like, you couldn't clear the brush like 10 feet from your home so that there was a barrier there that wouldn't burn. There was a lot of things. The water wasn't in the reservoir because it was too expensive to fill it. There was...
That's the official reason?
Well, that's the reason that we're getting, is that it dissipates, and then they said that it had to put it under construction. There's been no clear answer and no investigation, but those are some of the things that have been thrown out to us as legislators. They cut the budget. That was evident. You compared the last year's budget to this year's budget. They cut the budget in LA Fire by $21 million, $17 million for something else, and a few million for other issues. You look at some of the positions that were released were the mechanics that worked on the trucks. So you had trucks in the what they call the boneyard, or a yard where they had all these trucks that hadn't had maintenance. So they couldn't they had firefighters, but couldn't put them on the trucks to go fight the fires because the trucks hadn't been maintained. There's a lot of errors that took place, but yet they spent billions of dollars. Just like on the federal government, as an example, they invested billions into USAID, and we're finding out that that's a disaster. I bet if Doge came into California, I'm inviting you if you would like to come. If Doge came into California, you would find a funneling mechanism of billions of dollars that go to places that it should not go, and the California taxpayer is footing the bill. We spent $50 million just now on a special session, like I said, for 25 for AG free reign to sue the federal government, and then also the attorneys to defend undocumented immigrants that were being picked up by the federal administration, no matter what crime you committed. And that $50 million could have gone to the overdraft of the EDD, which they just fraudulently gave out people unemployment insurance during COVID, and now all the employers in the state of California have an additional tax to pay it back.
But the amounts of money are just ridiculous. $25 million for basically attorneys, right?
Yes.
$25 million.
Taxpayer dollars.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
How do you spend this amount of money?
They just didn't.
How much do they charge? $1,000 an hour?
There's no accountability. The language is pretty simple. It doesn't say they have to meet a certain threshold to be able to sue the government. The government has to encroach. The federal government has to encroach on this much before you sue it. Can only be in these frames. Whether it's whatever their issue is, right? Whether it's education or DEI or whatever. immigration. There was no guidelines. It's here. AG Bonta is $25 million. Go get Trump. That's basically what the legislation says.
And no one cares how he spends this money.
Well, we do. We stood up and fought it. We asked it to be, we asked it to be removed from the file. We asked to have a vote against it. People got up and spoke against it. We asked to try to get it pulled from the file. In the Assembly, the Republicans were able to get it delayed a vote for 2 days because they pointed out that the language didn't allows defense of taxpayer dollars to go to criminal aliens that are rapists, all those things that everybody is worried about. So they did what they call a letter to the file. It's the intent of the legislature not to cover costs for those individuals, but that letter is irrelevant. It's just a talking point. It's something they can hold up and go, we wrote a letter. That's not what we wanted to do. But it doesn't stop Bonta from doing it. Because the legislation says he has a free reign of $25 million.
Rob Bonta is elected, right?
He's elected. He's the Attorney General. He's elected.
AG of California.
Yes.
Next time he's going to be re-elected in 2026.
He's running for governor.
Do AGs have term limits?
Yes, they do.
2 terms?
2 terms.
He's been this is his second term?
This is his second term. He was appointed the first term and finished out a portion of it because he got an appointment because Becerra went to the federal government. I think it was Becerra. He went to the federal government. I focus on California politics.
So California, 2026, who do you think is going to, for sure, run for governor?
I know the lieutenant governor, Elena Kukalopoulos, is running. I know that Rob Bonta is running. I know Tony Atkins, who's the former Senate pro tem, is running. I believe Steve Hilton is running on the Republican side. I heard that Villanueva out of Los Angeles is running on the Dem side. Ex-sheriff. Mm-hmm. And I heard that there's another sheriff from San Bernardino County. He's running.
Bianco,
Chad Bianco from Riverside, right? From Riverside, and that's the only ones I've heard.
How about Kamala?
Well, if Kamala gets in, I think all the Democrats get out and align themselves behind her, which would be a disaster for California.
Do you think she has a chance?
Do I think she has a chance? No, I would hope that Californians have woke up with all the stuff that's being exposed on the fires, the forest management, the cost of fuel. I mean, you got to think about simple things that relate to the average everyday person sitting at a dinner table. We get fuel from foreign sources. We went through that on the podcast. They come from wherever it comes from, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Ecuador, it doesn't matter. We get foreign sources of fuel. It comes to our ports. We take that. We put it in our refineries. We refine it. We put it in a truck. We deliver it to the gas station. In California, we pay upwards of $5 a gallon. That same truck can drop off fuel to Blythe, California. It's $6 a gallon. Go across the Arizona border, fill up that gas station, it's $3 a gallon.
Why?
I don't know. What's magic about that line? What's the Arizona, the border, like the line between California, it instantly changes price. So what's that? So it's policies that Californians have. It's the same fuel, it's the same process, it comes from the same place, and theirs is almost $3 a gallon cheaper every single day of the year. You can track it. And so people are starting to be aware of that. We have the Legislative Jewish Caucus that is very concerned about what's going on in Israel. Not all of them, but a few of them are very concerned that we give money to Iraq to bring fuel here and what Iraq is doing with that money and how it's impacting Israel. I believe that President Trump's energy executive order or declaration of energy and domestic energy should be pursued. There's a segment in the Constitution that allows you to fortify your country, meaning the United States, with energy if it's a domestic security threat. If we produce our own energy and our own food, we're better off. We're way better off. If we rely on all those foreign countries for food and energy, they could cut it off in a heartbeat and we would be a third world country. Mm-hmm. So we have to produce those things here. And it's ridiculous that we have those assets here. We have those natural resources here, and they will not allow us to produce them here in California.
So similar thing to this magical border between California and Arizona, $6 and $3 a gallon, is the same thing as, let's take, for instance, abortions, right? People say up to 12 weeks, it's possible for you to do an abortion, right? But what happens in the 11th week, 6th day, 23 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, you can do an abortion. Split second, it's 12 weeks. This is something magical happens and you can't do an abortion because this suddenly it becomes a human, right?
In 1 second.
Just what happens in that split second
That turns it into
that turns into that you can't abort anymore.
I know. We got along. It didn't take us overnight to get to the place where we are on the abortion issue. It took a long time to get there, and it'll take a long time to hopefully reverse that and value life. There are some people say, "Oh, we're not supporting that bill because it's 12 weeks." But if you were at full term and you got it back to 12 weeks, think about the lives that you would save. So there has to be some type of, I am pro-life, but you have to, I'm not saying you have to do it in increments, but what if you just walked away and threw that legislation away and you said, okay, if you're not doing it all and you're only going to do 12 weeks, then we're not going to do that. But think about the lives that you would save if you had it at 12 weeks. California is a little bit uniquely different. There's a constitutional amendment because it was passed by the voters. But when I talk, and the voters are like, why would you oppose Prop 1? And I'm like, well, I didn't know that you would support, these are people I know. Why would you support abortion up to the day of birth? I would never, they're like, I would never do that. And it's like, but that's what Prop 1 does. Up until the day of birth, it's unrestricted. Before Proposition 1, there were restrictions. You could have an abortion and have access to it, but after a certain time length, you had to get a doctor's authorization, a doctor's approval, all of these things. With Proposition 1, it's up until the day of birth, unrestricted, woman's choice.
Right now?
Right
in
now.
2024,
Yeah,
in California.
They just passed that ballot measure on not the last ballot, but 2 years ago, I believe, 2 years ago.
So you can basically abort a 9-month-old child.
It's unrestricted. You can make that whatever the language is unrestricted abortion. So you can, however you want to terminate it. I mean, however you want to make that terminology, any attorney could turn that into anything.
Does this practically happen? People abort children that are 7, 8, 9 months old?
I don't know. I don't have that data. I don't. I think obviously Brian Johnson at the Pro-Life Council in California would be able to give you that data. I don't have that data. I know that the people of the state of California, not knowing, because they are like, oh, it's a woman's right to choose and this should be my body, my choice, and all of those things that they put out there. But I really don't think that Californians knew it was unrestricted abortion up until the day of birth.
What other Americans that live not in California have no idea about this wonderful state?
There are a lot. Like I said earlier, when we had the fires, I had some of my friends that are in the Senate call me and ask me and say, look, this just isn't true. Like they didn't cut the firefighter budget, or they didn't do this, and that reservoir really had water in it, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, nope, they did. They cut the firefighter. They didn't get sued and paid $2 million out to an environmental group for cutting down brush when they were undergrounding PG&E or Southern California Edison lines, like power lines. Mm-hmm. Yep, they did, and they settled and gave the environmentalists $2 million and then quit putting undergrounding power lines. It's people can't believe what happens. I ran a bill, SB 14, which is a human trafficking bill. In some states, they have castration, life in prison.
Chemical or physical?
Chemical. In some states, chemical. But if you sell a child for sex, if you are engaging in selling a child and having sex with a child, there's in some states, that's a harsh punishment. And
as it should be.
Oh, absolutely. California is the number one human trafficking. We get the number one phone calls into the National Human Trafficking Hotline for human trafficking of children because our laws are so lenient. Like if you were going to go to, say, Texas or Florida and you knew that you could go to prison for buying giving somebody down the street, $500 for a 10-year-old, and you knew you were going to go to prison and have to explain that to your wife or your business or your job or whatever, you'd probably be risk adverse. You'd be like, yeah, I'm not going there. But if you come to California and you give some guy $500 to have sex with a kid, it was a misdemeanor, a little ticket. They give you a ticket if you got caught.
That's prior to SB 14, correct?
That's prior to SB 14. And 1414, there's two bills.
Yes.
One went after the seller and one went after the buyer.
So let's say prior to SB 14 and SB 1414, if, for instance, if I sell, God forbid, my own daughter to another male, mm-hmm. What's going to happen to me? And I got caught. And I got caught.
It was a felony, but it wasn't a strikeable offense. It wasn't a strike. So if it was your first offense, you could probably get sentenced to 4 years and get out in 2. If it was your second offense, you could probably get sentenced to 8 years and get out in 2. So it just depends on the sentencing portion of it. 14, if you sold a child for sex, if you do it now, you're going to prison for at least 12 years on your first offense. You're going to register as a sex offender and you're going to pay a fine. If it is your second offense, you are going to go to prison for 24 years. And I'm going to keep you away from society because I don't want you to sell children for sex.
Okay, if I bought a child and had sex with him.
Okay, so
prior to SB 14.
Prior to SB 14, so take one of those out. If you engage in solicitation, hey, you sell that 10-year-old to me and I'll give you $100 or $500. I want them dressed in Minnie Mouse clothes. I want whatever.
Stop it.
I'm giving you complete examples of what our law enforcement partners, and I read those exact words between a perpetrator and a guy that was selling a 10-year-old. I read that. They wanted him dressed up like that. They wanted him to show up in a certain way. He asked about flavors of stuff. It was the most disgusting stuff I'd ever read in my entire life. And you cannot ever take those memories and those things that you saw that were happening to these kids before this bill. Okay. Those things, it was there. Our law enforcement partners, because our colleagues on the other side of the aisle would go, it's just words. And the law enforcement department would give us a big binder and they're like, read this. This is the words they're saying. And the victim was 10, the perpetrator was 36, the vendor, the seller was 44, and it gives you all the information and you just read it and it makes you sick to your stomach, like sick to your stomach. If you engaged in solicitation, the negotiation of the deal before SB 1414, it was a misdemeanor.
What does it mean?
It means that you could possibly get 2 days in jail, long enough to explain to your wife where you've been, and that's it. We went in trying to make it a strike and a felony, making you go to prison. We wanted you to spend 4 years in prison, okay? Right now, before 1414, it was 2 days in jail.
But that's just for buying, right?
For the buying piece.
But if a person would have had sex with a minor.
That's a separate code section.
Separate code, okay,
and
gotcha.
It is
just
a felony to do that.
Bought but did nothing.
Yeah, but bought and, I don't know. Okay, I guess.
Bought and got caught before
Bought and
sex
got
act.
caught but let's just be real, right? If you're going to negotiate a deal and shell out money and show up at a hotel room to have sex with a 10-year-old, I don't think you're going to just go, oh, I changed my mind.
Correct.
It's going to happen.
It's disgusting.
So my whole purpose of this was to stop it before it traumatized the child.
Correct.
Like, you're already negotiating the deal. You already are committing this horrific act by negotiating this deal and paying for it and demanding all these other things in exchange for your money, and then you show up. I don't want that child traumatized. I don't want to wait. I wanted that purchase piece to be the felony. This is already a felony, but I would rather stop it before it harmed the child. So that was the whole premise behind 1414, was to get him in the solicitation piece.
What were the amendments? Why did they fight so hard back?
You'll have to ask them, because I would never in a million years think it would be this hard to protect people from that horrific act, right? I never. A lot of pushback. They didn't want to cover 16 and 17-year-olds because they felt like they were old enough to make their own decision.
Age of consent in California is 18 years old?
Yes. But they didn't want to cover. Senator Aisha Wahab out of Hayward made us take an amendment that didn't cover 16 and 17-year-olds.
Yeah, but this is not prostitution, right? This is selling.
Yes.
You can't sell 16-year-old or 36-year-old.
Well, so we went in covering everybody, labor trafficking and sex trafficking,
Correct.
No matter what age.
Correct.
And they're like, no, it's too broad. It covers way too much. You have to take it to minors only. So then, just like you said, we were talking a minute ago about the abortion thing, like 24 weeks versus full term. Do you walk away and not protect minors because you can't protect adults, or do you get minors and go back after to protect adults? Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You have to make decisions, and they're hard decisions, because in the audience of all of our human trafficking survivors, I had a 17-year-old that went down on a full ride scholarship down to Costa Mesa, 2-parent family from Northern California, gets down to the LA Orange County area, says she falls in love. The guy was, he targeted her. He picked her up, and then she's 17 and a half, and he says, let's go to Vegas. I love you. Her parents say, don't do it. She waited a couple of weeks till she turned 18, went to Vegas. It took her several months to get back, and she was brutally tortured.
By him or by others? He was selling her?
He was selling her. So I wanted her protected, right?
Of course.
I wanted the 30-year-old that grew up in the foster care system, which a large portion of these individuals are targeted and they're traumatized as a child through the foster care system, trafficked. There was a case that we were just trying to help a young girl, 17 years old, that was trafficked by her foster parents since she was 13. So these are kids with trauma that turn into adults with trauma. And I wanted to make sure anybody that was in this world that had no control, it's modern day slavery. If I tell you where to eat, where to go, who to see, when you can, take a shower, that's control of someone else. And I wanted anybody, regardless of their age, protected. But the first bill died completely in 3 years ago or 4 years ago. The first bill died completely. And then we came back with 14. We wanted to cover everybody, either labor trafficked or sexually exploited. They forced amendments on us in this Aisha Wahab in public safety from Hayward, forced amendments on us to only cover minors, 17 and below. And then when we got to the assembly, and then we had them register as a sex offender, but they took that out for the first offense. And their argument to me was, if you require somebody to register as a sex offender, it will ruin their life.
That's the purpose of it. You think twice before
you do it again. What about the kid's life the person's life you just wrecked? So anyways, all of that to say that we got the bill out. 17-year-olds and younger covered. Second offense would be a sex registry. You had to pay a fine, and it was a strike offense. So if you had if you have a previous offense, you could go to prison for 24 years, right? We keep you locked up and away from society and protect children.
All right. So
because before, so to give people a real gist, before you could go to prison for selling a child for sex, and then that child be 12, and you could get out in 4 years and go find that child again at 16, and you've already traumatized that child. They see you walking down the street, you're going to create more trauma. So.
But if they stop at this certain age, let's say 16 or 17 is good, younger than 16 or 17 years old are bad. So let's not stop at the age. Let's even go further. Whites are available, blacks are not available. Mexican, Latinos, that's the same thing. Age-wise, race-wise,
they made all
education-wise. You're not educated, you can be sold.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Their argument, they're like, they kept coming after me like, you're just going after, I had these were in the dais, you can watch the hearing stuff. You just are targeting people of color in the LGBTQ community. And I'm like, only if they're selling children for sex, right? The bill applies to everybody equally. It applies to, it don't matter what color your skin is or what your socio-disadvantaged community is or your wealth is. It doesn't matter. If you're selling children for sex, I want you to go to prison.
Correct. And
if you're buying them, I want you to go to prison. So 14, the selling piece, we actually did get it over to the assembly. Then the assembly killed it. The governor, he did engage. He engaged, and because it was a nightmare, right? The media was all over it that they wouldn't protect kids from being sold for sex. So he engaged. He kind of played the card, forced them to take the bill back up. The same people who killed the bill on Tuesday passed it on Thursday. It got to his desk. He signed it. It's become law. 1414 went after the purchaser, the solicitor, the guy who made the deal, right, who was engaging in the purchase. It covered all minors. We went in again trying to get everybody covered, but it didn't work. They forced amendments on us to only include 15 and below. Their argument is that 16 and 17-year-olds that need an income would be out there on the street, and they didn't want them harmed and put in jail. I said, I'm not trying to put minors in jail. I'm trying to put the perpetrator that's buying them
a pimp
in jail.
Basically.
The pimp or the purchaser. I mean, the pimp can sell them and you buy them. I want you both to go to prison. Sorry, but I do. I'm not sorry. I want you both to go to prison. So again, Aisha Wahab, the Bay Area, she forced amendments on us. And so then you make a split you have a minute to make a decision, right? Do you pull the bill and kill it and take your bill off the shelf, or do you protect 15 and below? And then continue to fight for 16 and 17-year-olds. So they forced the amendments on it. So then I have a bill. I'm walking around saying I only want to protect 15-year-olds because nobody knows. If they read the bill, it's like she's only running a bill to 15 and below. But they don't know the process on how it got to that point. The average public member doesn't. And so we took the bill and we continued to fight. We pressured them in the media. We had a lot of media sources that helped us get the word out, saying, what is the purpose of this? Aisha, why are you doing this? Senator Wahab, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of pressure. It was in our favor that the individual that was in charge of public safety on the assembly side where the bill was going was running for mayor of Sacramento, Kevin McCarty. He was running for the mayor of Sacramento, which he is now the mayor. And we put a lot of pressure on him. Like we were going to, we were just going to start, the media was out. Kevin McCarty doesn't support 16 and 17-year-olds being protected. He has the Stockton Blade right in his district. And so we started putting pressure on him. So then he, as a Democrat, put pressure on Aisha Wahab and the leadership and like, look, I have 16-year-old daughters. They wouldn't be protected under this. So he made common sense, decisions. And then they allowed us to put 16 and 17-year-olds back in. But they had to prove they were trafficked first. So then it goes back to your scenario. They have to prove that they were actually raped and trafficked in the hotel room or wherever, the back seat of the car. And then we could go after the guy that started everything and negotiated the deal to purchase them in the first place. So that's how the bill ended up. 15-year-olds, you're going to get a felony, a wobbler. Well, it's a wobbler. They turned it into a wobbler, meaning that it could be charged as a felony or a misdemeanor. Now, in my community, my district attorneys are going to put you in prison or jail. They want you.
Good for them.
Yeah. But, when we had Gascon in LA, there was no way I could probably protect those kids down on the Blade down there because he's never going to charge anybody. But now we have Nick Hockman, so I think he will do that. I mean, I know he will. He'll do it. So kids will be protected in certain areas of the states, but probably not in San Francisco, where they have the Tenderloin district where a lot of this takes place.
And once the bill passes 2 floors, the governor signs it.
He does.
So both times Newsom went side, he was the good guy in the media.
So he, on 14, the selling piece, he actually engaged and kind of called out his people to say, you need to pass this bill. He did do that. I can tell you that Jennifer Newsom, the first partner, she was brokenhearted that this was happening in California, and she helped. She legitimately helped.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. She went down to Los Angeles and toured the Blade, and she was wrecked when she saw those little girls. It's just a slow driving car, and the girls get in, they go down the street, what they're doing, whatever, in the back seat, and they get out and they go back to the first of the line, and it's like an all day. It's like it takes you 20 minutes to get through it's horrible. These little girls that are down.
Where is that? Downtown?
In Los Angeles, downtown on the Blade on Figueroa Street. Just drive down there one day. It'll blow your mind. It's crazy. It's something like you've never seen. And the gangs control it. Police don't go down there. They don't enforce anything. It's all controlled. It's almost like a third world country. It actually is a disgrace to third world countries. It's not like it's just the most horrific thing you've ever seen in your life.
The first time when we got here, when we migrated to the U.S., prior to that, I was watching the Hollywood movies for decades, 20, 30 years, right? And I always thought that some movies were that was a screenplay, right? That was a script. There is no chance this is literally a reality here in the U.S.
It's true in California.
It's true. Once you go to LA downtown, Skid Row, once you see it with your own eyes, there's no chance this is a reality, but it is.
Exactly. And just like you said about does the rest of the world believe? Like I had people call me from Washington, D.C. Is that really true on the homeless? Do you really have a Skid Row? Is there communities of, I'm like, yeah, it's true. Like, it's true. Here, I'll send you a video. I was down there. Is it true that Governor Gavin Newsom cleaned up all the homeless in San Francisco before that big event that took place where Chinese,
Xi Jinping,
this Xi Jinping was here? Yes. Did they all come back the next day? Had business owners be going, look, I'm losing customers. They can't climb over the hole. They even passed a law that said that it's illegal to bar them from any public place, meaning if you have the sidewalk and then the indentation and they want to get out of the weather, you can't make them move out of that spot. You can't, even though they're blocking the entrance to your restaurant, your barbershop, your whatever. Look at what's going on in the Bay Area. Look at In-N-Out closed because of the danger. It wasn't because it was a profitable store, but there was gunfire. People were shooting people in through the window. Oakland. I mean, think about that. That's in the state of California. It's in the state of California. You would think it's like the cartel in Mexico, but or whatever. It's in the state of California.
I saw a great joke about this In-N-Out in Oakland. So In-N-Out, moved out from Oakland to a more safe area in Gaza.
Okay, that's not far from the truth when you think about it. That's why they closed In-N-Out. Look at the stores, the storefronts. You used to have beautiful shopping in malls. And, you know, the San Francisco legislators like, we still are a safe city. That same person that touted all that passed a law to make it more strict to break into a unlocked car. Now, follow me here for just a second. If you break into a locked car, it's theft, right? And there's a penalty for stealing and breaking a window and breaking into a locked car. But in San Francisco, everybody's cars were getting, their windows were bust. It cost money to replace it. Your insurance wasn't covering. You'd have higher insurance cost. So they would leave their doors unlocked, hoping that if they were going to break in, they would just open the door and not break the windows and steal. So it got so prevalent that people were leaving their doors open, and they just, for self-preservation, I guess, like I said, then at least they were stealing whatever is in your car, your radio, or whatever they were going after, but they weren't breaking your windows. You didn't have to turn in insurance. There had to be a law passed by that legislator that is out. It's illegal to break into unlocked cars too, because it was such a mess, right? So, and you know a funny story, I had never been to Belize. I'm going to tell you this story just because it makes me, you know, I'm from California. And so we go down, population happy. You know, it was like everybody's happy in Belize. It's beautiful. Whether you're pedaling a bike to work, pulling a cart, or you're in a golf cart or a car, everybody's happy, right, in Belize. That's what we saw when we went. And so we went on this, we bought this tour thing that you do, and we were going to go down these caves on these rafts, right? And so we went to the Mayan ruins, and we were going to go down these caves, and went to a jungle tour on quads. And we're in this car, and my passport, my backpack, my stuff is in this car. And I'm like, are you locking that? He goes, no, Yeah. And he's looking at me like I'm crazy, like I have two heads. And I go, my stuff is in there. And he goes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What year was that?
Just this past year, 2024. And I said, but that's my stuff in there. And he goes, yes, ma'am, it's your stuff. You're like, yes, ma'am. And I'm like, I want it to be here when I get back. Like, I felt like he wasn't understanding why I wanted the car locked, right? And he goes, but it's your stuff, ma'am. And I said, I know, and I want it to be here when I get back. And he goes, oh, it will be, ma'am. Would you take someone else's stuff? And I said, well, no, I wouldn't. But other people do. And he goes, not in Belize, ma'am. And I'm like, not here, maybe in other parts, but not here. And I'm like, how crazy is that? That I was so worried, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yes.
And we came back and our stuff was still there, and everybody was nice, and there were people all around, and but it's crazy that you have to have that mentality, if that makes sense.
Same thing I'm being told about the Dubai.
Dubai?
Yeah, you can leave your car open. You can leave even a Rolex on a front trunk. No one's going to take it.
It's not theirs. And there's penalties for doing things like that. Well, in California, there's no penalties. I was at the same thing in California. I've got my granddaughter. I'm at Kohl's returning a pair of shoes. This was like a year, like in the beginning of January 2024. I'm returning a pair of shoes. And these like 10 guys run in, covered in masks, black jackets, they run in and they're grabbing stuff. And I'm standing there and she's like, here's your $18.20. Like,
normal stuff.
Didn't even bat an eye. Like, and I'm like this. And I go, do you see that?
Oh, yeah, that's John.
And
I know.
She goes, it happens all the time. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then even in Sacramento, I think it was Target. It was either Target or Walmart. I think it was Target. The police told Target, we're going to fine you a nuisance fine if you keep calling that people are stealing from you. Like, they're going to
fine. That's a joke. Come on.
No, it's dead serious. They're going to fine Target for calling
police?
Because so many people are robbing Target. It's you can look it up. It's there. It's true.
And it's bothering the police just to get that amount of calls?
Yes, they're like, it's basically wasting our time because they can't do anything. Prior to Prop 36, they couldn't do anything. Then the people were like, hey, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, or you're not registered at all. You care that you can't go shopping because there's nothing on the shelves. You care that you go to Target or you go to Walmart or the grocery store or Walgreens and you have to push the button and wait 30 minutes to get deodorant, right? Because they have to unlock it and give it to you. I have a video on my phone when Judge Jeanine, do you know who Judge Jeanine is?
No.
Judge Jeanine Pirro from Fox News?
No.
Okay, so she's famous, right? Famous on Fox News. She has a 5. She has her own show. She's wonderful. She came here to Kern County 7, 8 years ago. And she goes, hey, we picked her up from the airport. And she goes, hey, I got to go by Rite Aid, da-da-da-da-da. I got to pick up some stuff. And I go, okay. And she's picking up all this stuff. And I knew when she got to the register, they're going to ask her if she wanted to buy a bag. I knew it because, you have to buy a bag if you want a bag. And no matter how much you spend, right, at the store. I go, hey, can I videotape you? And she goes, yeah, why? And I said, I just want to get a shock and awe reaction. I just want to know what your reaction's going to be. And she goes, about what? I go, just when you buy this stuff. And she goes, I buy this stuff all the time. I go, can I videotape you?
And she's from where?
She's from New York. So she's on Fox News. She probably has millions and millions of followers. She came to be a speaker at one of our events that we have in Kern County. So I videotaped her, and she bought, I don't know, $200 worth of stuff. Shampoo, hairspray, lotion, whatever, all this stuff. And the lady at the register, as kind as can be, just on cue, would you like to buy a bag? And she goes, buy a bag? I just bought all this stuff. You should give me a bag. And she goes, no, ma'am, California requires you to buy a bag if you want a bag. And she goes, they do not. You set me up. Like, she thinks I set her up because I wanted to, but I knew it was going to happen.
You know what? You should film me. Because in Lithuania, you buy a bag for no matter how much you spend.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yes, in Europe all the time.
Oh. No. So, and then you go to
other states, you don't pay for the bags?
You don't pay for the bags. You didn't know that?
No.
Oh, how
Even
funny.
if you have to have 10 bags, you don't pay for them?
I go to Texas to see. So one of my kids moved out to Texas. He lost his, he transferred to Texas to work in the the refineries there. And he took we have 2 grandbabies and our daughter-in-law. And we go visit them. And she goes, stop. Just stop. I'm like, look, you guys, $1.99 for chicken, $2.50 for eggs, and I'm like I'm on live on Facebook shop, and she's like, stop it, because you can go to Texas and what would cost you $200 here for groceries probably cost you $70 in Texas, and then you get there and I'm paying and you're just. It's like programmed, right? So you're there. And she goes, what are you doing? There's a line. I go, where's the thing where you say we got 6 bags? Like, where's that? And she goes, we don't buy bags here. We don't do
it's
that.
A whole other country.
It's free America. I always call Texas free America.
But we've got the weather and the mountains.
But we have the
ocean.
Weather and the ocean. Yeah. California is going to change.
Really?
There is no doubt.
Wait a minute. In a good way or a bad way?
No, in a good way. Really? I really do, but I mean, I'm a strong believer, and I know that God loves this state and he loves its people.
Amen.
And I think mountains, like not physical mountains, but like governmental mountains are moving. And I think people are finally waking up to the fact that all of this is not working.
You can't even be safe, right? You pay that much of taxes and you pay almost twice that you can pay, like you said, in Texas. And you can't even be safe? That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
So you were born here in California in 1965.
Yes.
American Dream was still alive in 1960s to 70s, correct?
Yes.
When did it all stop here in California?
So I think after Reagan, it stopped. But I don't think. I mean, it was kind of like the frog in the boiling water. Like it was, we were still hanging in there, even though the water was getting hotter. If you throw a frog in hot boiling water, it dies, right? But if you boil it slowly, it'll live for a longer time. So I think that like we were like the frog in the boiling water, like it was escalating. Rights were being taken away. It was costing you more for a water permit or a permit to open a business. It was costing you had to, pay $700 for a Secretary of State for a filing for your business before you even made a dime. It was costing you more for insurance. It's costing more for, but I think under Gavin Newsom, it probably quadrupled. It's under his leadership that we have lost all of our drilling permits that creates a cheaper fuel source for us, and we've imported more. It's under his leadership that the water supply has been more scarce because more water is being flushed out to the ocean or just released, and there's no way to capture it. Even though the people of the state of California passed a bond measure, it's under his leadership we've wasted billions of dollars on high-speed rail that will not be built in even your son Richard's lifetime. It's not going to be built. It's not. It's under his leadership that the cost of fuel, the cost of housing, California is the most unaffordable place to live in the entire world. So I was laughing at my daughter this morning. you don't think about things like this every day, but I had to go to a doctor's appointment. They asked me, when you had this, and I'm like, oh, when I was 25, they ask you when you had a child, so I'm like, well, I was 25, didn't I start? I thought, no, I wasn't 25 because that makes her 35 now. She can't be 35. You don't think about things. I don't think about things. And I'm like, oh my God, she's 35. When she was a baby, we bought her first house and we paid $26,000 for it. And it was right here in Bakersfield.
$26,000?
$26,000, okay? The house that I live in now, my husband built for $50,000 and it's on 5 acres and it's probably worth $1.5 million now with the acreage. And we paid $50,000 to $55,000. You can't even get permits for $55,000 now to build a home. And if you do, you can't. I have people call me all the time, like in the Central Valley, hey, I've got these 125 units or these 50 units that are affordable housing, farm worker housing, USDA partially funded, yada, yada, yada. And we can't get power. PG&E won't connect for 2 years and these houses are going to sit empty. So
no way.
Yes. I'll give you their phone numbers. You can enter for them. You'll have fun with these guys too. They're fun. They'll tell you. Yeah. They have to keep paying for the, and they give me examples I can show you on my phone. A single dad with 2 kids and they're just waiting to get into that house.
But this is not Iraq. This is California.
I know.
We've got Silicon Valley.
No, I know. We got Silicon Valley.
Technology capital of the world.
Yes, we have Tesla. Well, sort of. They kind of left. But
yeah.
We have SpaceX right here in Mojave. We have Virgin Atlantic. We have the China Lake Naval Air Warfare Center, which is the Army intelligence research and development arm of the military. Like, they got the smartest people out there. They just think stuff up and build it and make it so it protects our warfighter. I mean, we have all of this.
Except for electricity.
Yeah, we don't have electricity.
The king is naked.
Yeah. The king is naked.
So the last time Republican governor in California was Schwarzenegger. What do you think of him?
He was, he was sort of a Republican.
Yeah, because he was married to
the last
Kennedy.
Republican that we had was Ronald Reagan. Well, Wilson was good. So we had Wilson, he was good. Reagan was good. And Wilson grew up in the political world, but Reagan was just like, I'm done with this and we have to fix it. And he was kind of like Trump, right? When you think about it, like Trump didn't grow up in politics and Reagan didn't either. He was an actor, a rancher, he was so he's just like, this needs to be fixed. And so he went in, not in the same way that Trump did, but with the same
attitude.
Well, not even attitude, but the same background or the influence that he had in his life, right? He didn't grow up. He wasn't a city council member who became a supervisor, who became a legislator, who became governor, right? He just became governor.
Yes.
And so all of those relationships or all those deals and things that you did in the previous offices or what remember I gave you this for, he didn't have all that. He was free to just fix and help California. And when he did things like CEQA, like, should we make sure that the environment is protected? Absolutely. Should we do it at all cost? No. What do you think? Okay, let me ask you this. This is something we've been working on this last week. What do you think LA needs most to rebuild? What is the product you need most to rebuild?
Permits,
or no, the product, not the process, the product. Do you need wood? Do you need cement? What do you think you need? Probably cement, right? Cement builds everything.
I would say that.
Cement, roads, infrastructure,
correct.
Buildings. Do you know that we have there's 5 cement plants and 3 of them, 5 cement plants produce 11 million tons of cement in the state of California, and 3 are jeopardized because there is a Joshua tree, which is a succulent, right? And they're going to have to pay $3,500 per tree to get the cement out of the ground to give to LA to rebuild. And in this one plant, there are over 1,000 Joshua trees that will have to be affected. So that's just one part of it. So that's going to cost them what? $12 million, right? Right off the bat. Before they can even, give or take a couple $100,000, right? Even to be able to produce cement for Los Angeles to rebuild. But there's a new rule in order to even get a permit to take that tree, pay the $3,500 to take the tree. They have to figure out where they're going to put it, where they're going to take it, how they're going to relocate it, what property they're going to buy to put it on, and who's going to go out and monitor it to make sure it stays alive. Explain that to me. LA needs cement.
Now, for sure.
And there is thousands, hundreds of thousands of these trees. They are not extinct. They're a succulent. If you drop a leaf in the ground, it's going to grow. Okay? It's a succulent. It's not like you have to baby it or take care of it.
It's a beautiful tree.
It's a beautiful tree. There is a national park, the Joshua Tree National Park.
Beautiful park.
And you should reserve that and
Correct.
keep that and make sure people have opportunity to go see this majestic area. But if this tree is in your driveway or out and you need to, or in like your house is here and the street is here and there's trees there and you need to fix your sewer line so that you can flush your toilets, if those 3 trees are there, it's going to cost you $3,500 a tree to affect them. Now think about the people who live in the desert area. They might make $50,000 a year. Where are they going to come up with $3,500 a tree?
And you want to tell me that all those Joshua trees are just counted? If I just get rid of it?
Well, I'm sure there'd be a stiff fine if you did that. But that's what we're facing. Like, think about, like, in what world, no matter where you're at, is that any type of reality or common sense or, like, we're at? We have a special place for Joshua trees, and even outside the special place, there are hundreds of thousands of them everywhere. You drive, even when you drive over to the, like, go to Blythe, go to Vegas, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of trees that you pass that are not protected. They're not protected, right? But they're there, but they're not protected. The Joshua Tree National Park is protected. But if you drive by a mine and think these limestone deposits where you get cement, they have to be next to where it's actually at, right? They can't build it in Los Angeles and go dig up a hole and then bring it. You have to have the mine where the limestone is, right? So these mines are going to be desperately affected. And nobody even looks at that. They're like, nobody even looks at. They're like, well, but we have to protect the Joshua Tree. LA is not going to have cement. Do you have a backup plan? That's my question. What's your backup plan? Can you get it from China? Are you going to import it? If you're not going to get it here, if you're not going to get it here, where are you going to get it? What's your backup plan? That's my big thing now. What's your backup plan? You're not going to, allow oil to be produced here. What's your backup plan? What are you going to do if there's a storm and 3 of our ships get lost and we don't get ship deliveries for, 10 days? What's your backup plan?
Well,
for
they prioritize Joshua trees and fish over people.
Over Los Angeles rebuild. Yeah, over people.
Let's go to AB 1255.
I have a bill that allows $8,000 to follow the student if they're just a student. And if they're a special education student, I have a bill that allows $16,000. And I'm getting hit left and right? That's public money. I'm sorry. People that put their children in private school because they don't want them to go to public school because our public school is failing our children's. I mean, we pay more. We pay $24,700, almost $25,000 per student. And we have the lowest performing students in the nation.
Who gets all the money? Teachers earn a lot of money? They're not.
They're not. They don't get paid a lot of money. I mean, there's retirement and stuff like that, but there needs to be an audit on the public school system. But President Trump, everybody else, there's 40 other states that have a model where money, not all of it, right? Because you don't want to destroy the public school system. But if parents say, like, for instance, she's going to kill me right now. If she's listening to this or whenever this is not live or whenever you put it up, I don't know what it is. But my chief of staff is a single mom. And she made a lot of sacrifices to send her son to Jesuit high school, which is a private school. It's very expensive. But he had developed a self-taught, this kid is driven. Like, he's smart. He's got academically, he's smart. But he has a self-driven motivation and the ability to run. And he can run. And he is actually, I think he's number 1 in the nation now. No training, no nothing. But Jesuit just got the national or the state championship, and he's on that team. But she knew she had to get him out of the public school system, which wasn't developing that gift and talent that he had, to get him into this coach that would teach him. And he's been there a year. He's number 1 in the nation, or definitely number 1 in the state for his grade. I think he's number 1 in the nation. But that costs money. I have a friend who has a special needs daughter. She's high functioning, but she's Down syndrome, but limited verbal. All of her life, The public school system said, your daughter will never do this. She'll never be able to do this. She'll never play sports. She'll never do this, never do that. She'll never achieve this. And she got tired of hearing that. So they scrimped and saved, and they put her in a private school. It's a hybrid school where she goes to school 3 days a week and privately. And then she's homeschooled 2 days a week. The last painting, they developed her artistic ability. The last painting I think she sold went for $50,000. This Down syndrome little girl. But
watch me.
Yeah, you watch me. But in public school, it's like, well, she doesn't need to take art. She won't even, she can't do art. She'll never be able to play sports. She plays sports. She has her own little podcast that she does on Instagram, her only little Instagram channel. And she's limited verbal. She's hard to understand, but she tells you how to care for your skin and do your hair, and she curls. She has her own, what every other 17-year-old girl would probably do, she's doing on Instagram. And it's because her parents saved to put that. They pay taxes. They have a business. She has a nonprofit. Why can't part of that money that they pay taxes follow that little girl to her school? So instead of paying $12,000 out of pocket, they only have to pay $4,000. Why can't my chief of staff? Why can't those parents in these low socioeconomic disadvantaged communities where they have the lowest performing, in Oxnard or not Oxnard, but in Hayward, in these places like in Los Angeles, in inner city, why can't money follow those students so the parents can go, I want my kid to go across the town and I want my kid to go to that school where they have robotics and engineering and technology? Why can't, no matter who you are, whether you're a farm worker or a hotel cleaner or someone that is a chief of staff in the state legislature, why can't that money follow you for the best education opportunities for your kid? Why do you have to be in a public school system that doesn't focus on math, reading, writing, science, and technology that makes you better equipped to function, to be in the world? And you want to talk about how victimized people are and how, we've had a black president of the United States. I realize that there's a lot of issues going on with race and all those things, but I think a lot of it is driven by individuals who point people as a victim and they're not. My mom was a single mom. She raised 5 kids. I was a juvenile delinquent. I went to juvenile hall. I did. I was a rotten.
For what?
Well, I'm not going to go into all that. Mostly drugs. But, as a kid, mostly drugs. And, ditching school and a delinquent. Back then, truancy was an issue. And I went to juvenile hall. And then now I'm one of 40 in the state of California, and I don't have a college degree. America is the greatest opportunity zone that you could ever have.
Amen.
And for your son, Richard, being here, the sky's the limit. And it may have been in Lithuania as well, but nothing's like this country. It really isn't. But people like Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris and individuals that are putting policy forth that destroy the freedom that every American should have the opportunity to have and have access to, and creating victims and villains is completely unacceptable. We need to go back to the America that we used to have, and President Trump is turning that corner for us. And I think everybody, whether you like him or not, I love him, but whether you like him or not, I bet you're happy that your daughter isn't getting pummeled by somebody in men's sports. I bet you're happy that he's saying that no men can go to a women's prison so that you stop rapes in prison. I bet you're happy that your cost of living is going to go down. I bet you're happy that jobs and economic opportunity. I bet you're happy that Doge is saving all this taxpayer dollars. It could go down the list. I bet you're happy they're securing
Street in Iraq.
Yeah, or yes, and I bet you're happy that the border is finally being secured. If you turn on Fox News or Newsmax, you can see those people being deported to Guantanamo that were raping and killing and taking over apartment complexes in Arizona or Utah. I bet you're happy that finally in the southern part of our state, in the San Diego border area, that you are not afraid to go out on the streets anymore for fear of, I bet you're happy that people aren't coming by boat into I bet there's a lot of things that people are happy for with President Trump being in office. And we're on our way to a really phenomenal next, hopefully, 12 years, 4 with President Trump and 8 with J.D. Vance.
But his personality. He's so mean tweets.
Okay.
Orange guy,
mean tweets, all of that stuff. You know what? Your groceries are going to be cheaper. You're going to have more freedom. Your gas is going to be cheaper. He's going to stop all this nonsense. I think somebody told me just the other day, haven't verified it, you could look it up, I'm sure, that before he went back and said 2 genders,
Yes.
there were 74. What is 74 genders? What is that? 74. Maybe not in free Texas, but in California there are 74 like explain that to me.
I took a look at all those 74 genders on Wikipedia, and one of which was, you will never believe that.
What?
Gender fuck. That's a gender.
What is that?
I don't know. That was literally a gender.
That is a gender?
Yeah.
Well,
I can be a male or female or a gender fuck.
What is
word.
that?
I don't know.
Okay.
One word.
Well, that's like I was having a conversation we were talking about, we have some serious issues in Chowchilla's prison, right? And everybody that's serving in the prison system, they're in there for a purpose, right? Because they committed a crime against humanity, but they deserve to be safe when they're in there.
Correct.
So you have women that are being raped because there was a bill that was passed by Scott Wiener in San Francisco that says when you go to prison, you can, when you walk in, you can self-identify. If you went to prison tomorrow, even the way you lived your life with your, everything, and you commit a crime, you went to prison, you could say, I'm a female. And they would have to process you into the female prison system.
That's basically a paradise. If you're a prisoner, male.
Oh my gosh.
I would go. Of course I would
absolutely.
do that.
There's 500 or something applications. But there is another caveat to that. I met individuals in the women's prison that truly, I don't have I'll make everybody mad because I don't have a real name for it. But there are real trans women that are in this prison that are biologically men, but in a male prison because of who they and how far they have gone down that road for identification as a female. Their life, hospitalizations, broken jaws, gang raped. I don't want those people hurt. They deserve to be protected too,
correct.
Right? But if you are 6 foot tall and you've lived as a man and you are intimidating and you're only in there for the purpose of, there's been rapes, there's been babies produced,
correct.
There's an outbreak.
One in New Jersey.
And California's solution to that, we're going to give you access to resources. We're going to provide condoms. Carry the condoms to the break room in case you get raped on the way. Excuse me, don't rape me yet. Let me get this condom out. So I got that letter and I'm holding it up on the Senate floor. They shut me down. They wouldn't let me talk about it. I'm screaming about condoms going into
It's not a rape if you wear a condom.
Oh yeah, it's exactly right. It's nuts how they did that. So when you say, is that really true? Yes, that's really true. And actually, they come in rainbow wrapping.
No way.
Yes, they do.
6 colors.
I don't know what colors.
Because 7 colors is the true rainbow. Okay. The rainbow of God.
It was, but they were red and blue and orange and yellow and green. I'd have to count the colors, but it was a rainbow package. It was like a colored package.
Scott Wiener had this strange commentary towards SB 1414, correct?
Yes. Which one are you talking about? There were several that he had.
That it's going to affect negatively LGBTQ community.
Yes, he said that it would that I am targeting the LGBTQ community. I'm not. If you're buying sex from a child, I don't care what you identify as, and I don't care what color your skin is or what nationality you are or how much money you make. I want you to go to prison. If my bill didn't target a particular sect of person, it equally across the board. It didn't matter who you were. If you wanted to buy a child for sex or sell a child for sex, I want you in prison, away from society.
Doesn't he understand that how insulting it is for gays and lesbians that he's saying that if you want to send a perpetrator or a vendor to a prison for buying a child for sex will affect negatively their communities? It's insulting.
It is insulting. And it's insulting. It was. And we had LGBTQ community, like TikTok people and, individuals like podcasters. I don't know if podcasters, but we know we had influencers is what they're called. Sorry, I'm 60. So influencers. Almost in March, yeah.
We're 4 days apart, by the way.
Are we really?
On March 14th.
Oh, I'm March 18th. But so we had them going, no, that's not, we don't want LGBT, if they sell a child, we want them to go to prison too, right? So there are a lot of people that think differently. I think the 2 major opponents that really got everybody else kind of whipped up over this whole thing to stop it, the 2 individuals were Scott Wiener and Aisha Wahab. They were the ones that, and it wasn't really, Scott's was about policy. Like he was really scared it was going to negatively impact people, put people in prison. He was worried about it targeting it. He really was. Scotty was really super worried about those. Aisha it was I said you weren't getting 16 and 17-year-olds, and I'm not having this conversation with you, and you're not going to make it. It was more of a, because I said so, you're not doing it. She supported the policy because she's like, they should all be, she's told me they should be in prison. But because she tossed me a bone and I didn't take it, and I caused an uproar over the bone she tossed me, it was more because she's like, I said so. Like, a box is a box. I'm not giving you prison, and you are not getting 15. You're not getting 16, 17-year-olds. And then, of course, when the first partner got engaged, and, obviously McCarty got engaged, and the governor, she didn't have really a choice. So she had to make a deal, and the deal was a wobbler. And we took what we could get at that point, because we were probably, 4 days out for the session ending, and they didn't even bring that bill back to the floor because they didn't want me to talk on it till 11:50 midnight. It's over, right? And if you don't get a vote on it, it doesn't go to the governor's desk. So they held that bill. Aisha Wahab held that bill and wouldn't let it come over back to the Senate. It was on the assembly floor, and they wouldn't let it come over. Michael McGuire wouldn't. They all got together and wouldn't let it come over. And it could have died in the assembly. But I had friends on the assembly side Democrats that wanted that bill passed and didn't want it to die. So they actually were able to help push it over. But I don't think they brought it back. We had to get its timestamp, but it was I had enough time to say SB 1414 is back on concurrence with amendments, request an aye vote. I couldn't say they destroyed it, they did this, they excluded 16 and 17-year-olds, we got them back. I couldn't do all that because there was not enough time to call the roll and get the bill off the floor to the governor's desk.
Do you care about a person's party preference? The senators, assembly members, party preference, whether they're Democrats or Republicans?
So we had, on those bills, we had 30.
You in general. Do you care? Yeah.
No. I don't look at a person's party. I really don't. I guess I'm a little more apprehensive. If somebody comes to me and says, if President Trump came to me and said, hey, I want to run this legislation, I'd probably say I'm all in, right? If Biden came to me, I'd say I want to see it. But I have Democrats. I've worked with Tony Atkins on Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. I worked with Scott Wiener on housing. I've worked with Democrats. I've worked with Susan Rubio on domestic violence issues. I worked with the governor when President Trump was in office the first time and I was in leadership. The governor came and we were having a problem with real IDs. He knows I tell this story. Real IDs, if you lived in California, we hadn't got real IDs out through the DMV, and you weren't going to be able to get on a plane because the federal government says this is the deadline. And they're like, hey, can you help? And I said, I think so. And I called my contact at the White House. They're like, oh yeah, Senator Grove, what do you need? I said, I don't know what I need because I just picked up the phone and called, and they're sitting right there, and they're like 3 months. And I'm like, I need 6 months because there's no way they're going to do it in 3 months. And he says, sure, where do you want me to send or have somebody call? And they're trying to rattle off a number, and I gave him mine. Just call me. Just give my cell phone number. So by the end of the day, we had it solved. We had a 6-month extension. It was not a big deal. And then so that worked. We worked across to save the angst of Californians not being able to get on a plane. There was a lady named Isabel Bueso, a young girl that came to me. She has what they call Lammy syndrome. And she couldn't be deported. They don't have the medical technology to save her life, and her visa was running out. And
what country?
I don't remember what country. This is in 2014. And
but this hemisphere or Eastern Hemisphere?
Eastern Hemisphere. So she came with her parents and her advocate, and I connected her to then Congressman Kevin McCarthy, who worked to keep her in the state so that she could receive the treatment that she needed, right? So it was a Democrat that brought that to me, but it was the right thing to do for that person and the right thing to do for others. And then a couple of days later, they came back up and they go, hey, we got this idea. And I'm like, no way. No way. I'm not helping you with that. No, but I understand. You don't got to explain it to me. There's no way I'm touching that with a 10-foot pole. So they get me because I'm kind of just straightforward, black, not black and white, but I look at things like even I have the people on the right, no men in prison, women's prisons, but there is a type of man that is a biological man, but you would not know that. And that person is being brutalized. Just like I said earlier, there has to be a safe place for them too. It has to be
What's the solution?
Safe. So the solution that we have in county jails, which I wish they would adopt in California in the prison system, which Scott Wiener is adamantly against and will kill, is that in the dormitories and the showers, it's biological females and biological males, no matter how transitioned you are, right?
Okay, but how do you define gender then? By chromosomes?
No,
or by,
if you are a biological male, if you have biological male parts, then you are male over here,
Okay.
and then the women are over here. Now, the way we do it in county jails is that transgender women, that men that are transitioning to women, so transgender women can go to county jails that are housed with women, but they don't sleep in the same dormitory. So women, what is the word? Real women. I'm going to say real women because I don't remember the word that what they call women. It's a new term now. Says women or something like that. Anyway, cis women. And I'm like, what's that? That's what you are. And I'm like, no, I'm a real woman. So, it's just this verbiage that you have to try to get used to that I probably won't ever get used to. But so you have real women that are in prison in dorms that sleep here, that shower here, and then you have trans women that are still in the women's prison, not being brutalized by the males
Correct.
in real prison, in men's prisons, but they sleep and shower over here. They're different autonomy, different body parts, the whole bit. So there's privacy and protection, and there's those. But when you go to class or rehabilitation services, when there's guards present in the daytime or you go eat lunch, you're together. So that's a solution that's much better than what we have now. Right now, Scott Wiener's bill gave you a preference. As if you, not you, but a trans woman, a man, gave a man saying they're a woman, gave them a preference. So could you just imagine this guy walking down the thing and seeing this real pretty prison inmate, like, I'm picking her room. And she has no right to say no because he has a preference in where he chooses to be.
Because I am a male.
Because he identifies as a woman.
And I have these two cojones.
Yes. So we want to take away the preference, and we want to make sure that women, real women and trans women, real trans women, are safe when they sleep, safe in the home environment, but definitely there's no mixture when they sleep or when they shower or use the bathroom. But go down to the day room and have lunch.
Trans people, were they here, let's say, 20 years ago?
I don't know. I didn't know of them.
So they suddenly occurred.
Well, when I was in school, so I'm 60, we just almost 60, 4 days apart.
I'm almost 60 as well.
Okay, so when I went to school, I don't ever remember anything like that. But I do have somebody that I did go to school with all the way through grade school now who is married to another woman. And it's on Facebook. They live in Texas or Louisiana or something.
But they're gays or lesbians.
Yes, they are. Lesbians or gays. Yes, you're
I'm talking
right.
about trans.
Right. No, I did not have that. I did not know of that.
So,
I was not aware of that.
What the extreme left say about that? Trans people always were here, but they were hiding? Or they just kind of occurred in the last decade?
I haven't had that conversation with any of my colleagues.
But it feels like there were no trans people at all, like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know of any, and I never was around any. And I grew up in Arvin and Bakersfield, and I was in the military overseas in Germany. I don't even remember. I was in Germany for 2 years. I didn't ever remember seeing anything like that in Germany.
So the question with the prisons and jails with the trans people, it's a new thing. So it means that 20 years ago,
paying for sex change operations by taxpayer dollars.
So 20 years ago, that wasn't a thing.
20 years ago, you did
It means
not
something has changed.
Something
Just like
changed.
the homeless, right? The first time I got to the U.S., I visited Los Angeles in 2018. We went and lived for a week in Venice Beach.
Okay.
So Venice had some homeless.
But not like now.
But not like now. So something has changed. Can you reverse everything that you did?
But it's like, think
Reverse
about people.
it.
Yeah. So think about people. So a lot of people that come here, immigrants become homeless after you lose your housing. They give you housing at first. You have the cost of living. We help people. We helped a United States military veteran that was on a pension program for the military that was going to lose his house because the taxes had gone up so much he couldn't afford to pay him anymore. The cost of living is the policies that impact the cost of housing, the cost of insurance, the cost of everyday life has caused people to lose their homes. You have jobs. You used to be able to go to McDonald's and make it, if you're a 16, 17-year-old or it was an entry-level position. They
Correct.
teach you how to show up for work, to get along with others, to do something to show up for work, like the soft skills, be there on time.
And
now they think it's a career. So how many times do you walk into McDonald's now and it's replaced by a computer or a dashboard? So those jobs are leaving. Businesses that can't survive in California because the minimum wage increases because of the labor law. There is so much labor law that affects it. There's a thing called PAGA, the Private Attorney General Act. It used to, if you had a class action against your business, you have to go to the Attorney General and he would file the class action if it was warranted. Now I can file a class action against you and your business. I could go to Lowe's and go, I'm filing a class action against you, and I can be the lead plaintiff, and we settle the case, and I get, $100,000 as a preferential treatment, as a preference plaintiff, and all the other employees get, $1,000 or whatever the number is.
But it's good if the employer abuses people.
But there's no abuse. I mean, they could say, there's PAGA lawsuits where I give you a car and a cell phone so that you can be, make it easier on you, and you go pick up your kids in my company vehicle and drop them off at school, and now you're going to charge me for that even though you're not working. You don't even show up to work till 8:30 after you drop your kids off, but I'm now responsible because you're driving my company truck, and you sue me for 4 years of back wages because you're now driving a company truck? You're now going to charge me for electricity when you plug a phone in to charge my company phone at night? You're now going to say that, hey, this error paycheck stub, you have, it says this is the pay period from 7/1 to 7/8, which is a 7-day period. But it says week ending 7/8. I don't know that was the week before. It says week ending, but the law says you have to have inclusive dates and a dash in order for your employee to understand that's a $100 penalty per pay period if you pay weekly per employee per paycheck. That's the laws that we face. Those are just business laws that you face in California. The business laws, the most environmentally strict. I have a friend, now not most of these people aren't like this friend. He buys this beautiful ranch, the old Buck Owens Ranch. Do you ever hear of Buck Owens? Famous country singer. Anyways, so he's Streets of Bakersfield. He's that guy. So anyways, he buys his ranch, and it's full of tumbleweeds because it's been, left for a long time. So he calls San Joaquin Air Board, and he goes, hey, I need a permit to burn these tumbleweeds. You can't burn tumbleweeds. You can't burn them. He goes, what do I do with them? You can't burn them. You can't throw them away. Can't take them to the dump. Can't do anything. So he's the scientist. He likes science. So he takes the tumbleweed down, finds out how come cows don't eat them because he can't feed them to the cows. What's wrong with them? So this has a bitter taste. So he runs them through this thing that extracts the bitterness, which makes a whiskey palate or a whiskey. So he sells tumbleweed whiskey, turns it into a business. So now he has a business. One of his businesses, you buy farm, you can't get rid of the tumbleweeds. They're horrible. Your cows.
He turns it into whiskey.
Yeah. So you pay him to come get your tumbleweeds, right? He takes them, extracts the stuff, makes whiskey, and then turns the other stuff into mulch and sells it to gardeners. So you pay him to come get your stuff. He sells his whiskey and sells the stuff to, and so he's turned a business out of tumbleweeds because he's that person. But not everybody has an ingenuity. They just want to burn them. I had a phone call this morning. A person that lives in the mountains. He's got 3 years of burn piles. I got to burn. They won't let me burn. So they won't let anybody. It's just a very restrictive freedom society that we've created. When I refer to Texas as free America, it's free America. I went to Texas. I told you about the grocery store with my kids. I saw one homeless person the entire time I was in Texas. And I can show you a video when we were driving. The freeways in California are littered with trash and garbage and hoses and trash cans and all kinds of stuff. As soon as you cross over that border, it's pristine. There's no garbage on the freeways in Texas. They even have, like they call them, access roads that go along the freeway that have pretty flowers. And there's no garbage on the freeways like that in Arizona. And we pay more per mile for Caltrans than any other state in the nation. How come we're not picking up garbage? We have businesses that adopt freeways that go through a whole $100,000 process and permits and everything to adopt a freeway to keep it clean. Think about that for a second. It's crazy.
Fifth economy in the world.
Yes, fifth largest.
In the world.
Yeah, and we can't even maintain our roads. Or we can't maintain our school systems, and we have the lowest performing schools, and our businesses pay the highest taxes. And, when you think about hiring an employee, you have FICA, Federal Food City, EDD, Workers' Comp Liability Insurance. You got to worry about PAGA. You can hire one person one day, and they can file a lawsuit against you that will affect you for the 4 years prior to. That's the laws in California.
If you take away mountains and Okay, Mountain, Sequoia Park, Yosemite Park, Tahoe, Big Bear. If you take that out, it will turn basically into Louisiana.
You think so? I have a beautiful Central Valley. If you've never we've got, before the Creek Fire, we had the Big Creek Power Plant, and you have the most amazing, beautiful water system from Edison Lake to Huntington Lake to Shaver Lake. It used to be gorgeous.
I mean,
it's the Sierra Mountains.
I mean, it's going to turn into Louisiana economy-wise.
Oh, economy-wise. I thought you were making fun of my district. I'm like, I like my district.
If you take the nature, if you take away climate,
yeah,
it will vanish.
You're right.
So, Shannon, I have the same question that I have this on my every episode. So let's have two assumptions with you. Assumption number one.
Okay.
Assumption number one is the president of the United States, especially now, is the most powerful human being on planet Earth. Assumption number two is you become one. You become the president of the U.S. Once you do so, you have all those agencies that are friendly to you. Let's say Secret Service come to you and say, Missis Grove, we love you. Congratulations. You're the president now. We as a Secret Service, we know all the answers in the world, right?
Okay.
You ask us, we give you an honest answer.
Okay.
What would be your first question?
Oh, that's a tough. And I could ask anything.
Anything, and you will know the truth. They will tell you the truth.
I could ask anything and they would tell me the truth.
Correct.
There were the really tunnels where Marilyn Monroe snuck into the White House. I don't know. It's a silly one. I don't know. There's things I would want to know. Like there was things like, who's on Jeffrey Epstein's list? Why hasn't that been exposed? What happened on January 6th? Does Joe Biden have any medical history of dementia, which is evident from my mom dying of dementia? And he exhibited the same things. Did he jeopardize our country by being in that position? And who was running the country during that time? Was Ronald Reagan really the greatest president ever? And, da-da-da-da-da.
I think Trump is going to say, watch me.
What?
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer. You don't think he'd ask a question?
If you said that Reagan is the greatest president of the US,
I said, was he?
Trump would say,
no, hold my beer and watch me.
I've got 4 more years.
I really do think that Trump will go down as the greatest president in history. And I think that this new piece that he's doing, I think the previous administration that he held, having Biden, will go down, obviously, I believe, and Kamala Harris as the vice president, the worst administration.
The polls say the same thing?
Worst administration ever. How do you have a vice president of the United States in charge of the stuff that she's in charge of, and she can't even hold a coherent sentence without cackling or laughing and word salads, and you can't even understand the things she says. So, in the policy that she supported, you have this, and you have Trump coming back prepared from what he learned in the beginning and full force. Look in the last 2 weeks what he has done. I don't think there's a president who accomplished that in an entire 8 years that he's accomplished in 2 weeks. And I think that people are taking notice, and I think that once that they defund, my thought process has always been like, if you want to support the whales, then use your resources to go support the whales. It shouldn't be government's responsibility. If you want to support the foul flower, go. If you want to be a tree hugger, go be a tree hugger in those language. I love the mountains. I'm not being negative. If you want to be a rancher, go be a rancher. If you want to be a business owner, go be a business owner. Government should have limited responsibility in those things. Government is to protect us and provide infrastructure, right? That's the two main things that they should do. Provide us freedom and liberty, infrastructure, and they should make sure that we're safe human beings, safe citizens, so that, we're not worried about bombs, we're not worried about Hezbollah, we're not worried about Gaza, we're not, we shouldn't live like that. And we should be able to freedom to pursue our own aspirations within reason. Like, there's always certain things, like you wouldn't want a trailer house next to your multi-million-dollar home, right? Even though I believe in property rights, there should be ordinances and things like that. But I think that with President Trump, you're going to look back and think, wow, that brought common sense back to America and freedom back to America. And I think people are going to enjoy living in that 4-year span, and they're going to want more of it.
What do you think of his plan to take over Gaza?
His plan to take over Gaza? I don't think he wants to like move United States citizens over into Gaza. I think he wants to send our military in there and say, we're going to fill the, I mean, I don't know. I haven't talked to him about this. I don't talk to him. Obviously he's the president, but to me, I did talk to him once on the tarmac, and based on with that one conversation I had on his Trump plane, he was the nominee. He was not yet the elected president. He met with me on the tarmac because I was in leadership, and we spent about an hour. I spent an hour on that plane. And based on that conversation, again, I have no factual data. I think he wants to send the United States military in there. He wants to partner with Israelis. He wants to fill those tunnels. He wants to help people take back that strip and get it out of the hands of Hamas and all the people that support that tyrannical government that creates chaos in our world. And I think he wants to eliminate that piece of the world, that organization.
Hamas?
Yeah, that organization. But I don't think he wants to make it part of the United States where Americans go over there and live, if that's what you're asking me.
Let's get back to your answer that you said you would like to have the Epstein list.
Yes.
Let's say you're the president and you got the Epstein list. You have this, let's say, 200 names, last names of maybe politicians, Hollywood actors.
Yes.
Who's who, right?
Yes.
You as a president of the U.S., would you expose it to the public?
You bet your ass. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you bet. You bet.
Right away.
Right away.
So you think people can handle the truth, even if it's harsh?
So now you sound like Scott Wiener. But people are going to be hurt if they buy and sell children for sex. These people committed the most heinous crimes against humanity. When you think about, obviously the Holocaust was the most heinous, or in the Turkish issue. But you look at what these people did, and they used their wealth to pay for it, and their political power. Those people should be in prison just like every other individual that bought or sold a child for sex. And I'm the champion of women and children in that arena here in California. And if I was president of the United States and I asked for the Epstein list and they gave it to me, I would release it in a heartbeat.
Let's take another issue. For instance, you ask whether there are aliens or not, whether we had encounters with the aliens, and they say, yes, we have proof. Would you expose it as well?
Yes.
No holdback at all?
No.
On any other topic?
No.
JFK killing?
No. I'd release it. Why can't the people of the United States know what happened to our country?
Because the meltdown is going to be huge.
What?
Look at the meltdown that is happening right now with Trump. We've got...
I feel like, what's that movie where that actor goes, you can't handle the truth. I can't
A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men, yes. Jack Nicholson, yes. It's, I think that people have a disconnect or a not, a hesitation with government and a distrust with government because we're not honest with them. More transparency doesn't create dishonesty. More transparency creates, a good relationship between the people and their government. And I guess let me ask you this. You talked about going down to the Skid Row, or you said something about Skid Row. If those 200 names were those Skid Row homeless people, what would be the big deal about releasing it? And just because those 200 names could possibly be powerful people that are connected to politics or money, there's no difference. Everybody's justice should be equal.
Yeah, but people idolize, especially Hollywood actors, musicians. I've been listening to this guy for 30 years, and now you want to tell me, and you have proved that he's a pedophile?
You've been
this is the
to the
meltdown.
wrong person.
Yeah,
okay,
correct.
But did you? Okay, so
you should listen
I guess
to Jesus.
the question isn't. Yeah, listen to Jesus. But I guess the question isn't like, and I've been listening to him. It's now that you know this and you know he did this and he did this to these people. Are you still going to listen to him? Are
people
you
still listen to R. Kelly?
Okay, well then that's your choice. You're a free American and you're entitled to do that. But there are a lot of people that won't. I don't listen to it. You look at what's. Somebody asked me, hey, have you heard that song that someone's, and I'm like, I don't even know who that artist is. Like, I don't listen to that music. I listen to The Message. I listen to podcasts that, I listen to Charlie Kirk. I listen to podcasts that I listen to on the way to Sacramento the other day. I listened to this word over the United States 2025 word from Chuck Pierce. I listen to people, but the thing is that I should be able to listen to that. And if you want to listen to any other music or whatever it is, and you're an adult, you should be able to listen to that too. And if it comes out that this person that raped a 10-year-old or whatever the case may may be, and they're on this list, and they paid millions of dollars to go have sex with little kids in a foreign country on an island, or all these rumors that are circling around, and you still choose to listen and support that person, I think you're just as weird as them, but that's your choice.
Yeah, there is a reason of the second commandment of God, right?
Yeah.
Do not create any idols. There's a reason.
Yeah. And the Lord has, and I know it sounds, and I know I get mad, just like when they asked me how SB 14 got out, and I just kind of smiled and sat back for a minute and thought, and I answered, and I said, only my Jesus could take a dead Republican bill in a Democrat-controlled safety committee, resurrect the bill they killed 2 days prior, pass that bill and get it to the governor's desk and make it law. And the guy goes, no, really, what happened? I'm like, next question. I don't know. That's what happened, So I know that God, nothing happens that surprises him, nothing. The Lord knows.
All glory
nothing.
to God.
Yeah, all glory to God. And he knows. And I really do believe that he needed and he uses we're all part of his hands and feet, right? And I believe that he's using President Trump to reset the world. Look at the pathway the world was going down, and then if you follow international prayer, you follow prayer partners, or you follow this stuff, the whole prayer for the last 4 years has been expose. And look at the things that are being exposed. And
people
and restore righteousness. We used to be a country that honored God. We had Judeo-Christian values. We didn't instigate or divide, or, I can look at all the things that happened. The church lost its way too, I think. We didn't turn, if back in the days, pick a day, but if your neighbor was in trouble, that you helped your neighbor, and your church went. If they couldn't plow their field or use their oxen, you went and helped them plow their field and got their crop started. You didn't call on the government to give you a grant to have somebody come in and plow your field, and then you owed the government, and your neighbor was forced to pay for it. People helped people. And the church relegated the widow and the orphan. Look at our foster care system. Why aren't church families, look at the foster care system. The state has no business taking care of our foster. They are horrible at it. 40% of them are trafficked. 40% of them are abused. You look at, they have mental health issues. They've got trauma that is almost impossible to get rid of.
40%, every other.
40%. Almost. And if you look at them, the church should be taking that role. They should. The church should be taking that role. And if you're a family and you decide at a church, and you decide to adopt a child and take this child in, then the body of Christ should wrap around you. Hey, we can take him, little Billy, to soccer practice, or we can take Richard to, whatever, drama, school. We can drop your kids off at school, and so that there's a community. If that makes sense, but a good community. And the church needs to stand up, because working on SB 14 and 1414 and some of the books, there are books out there that are available to individuals that are bad individuals, that teach you how to get a child from the foster care system at a very young age. That scripture, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. There's a scripture that says that. And just like you're raising Richard to be, and my kids are raising my grandkids to be just good kids, that, this is wrong and you don't do this. There are people out there that want young foster kids, and they're getting access to them because they've got how to apply to be a foster care parent for a young child, to groom them into, but the main, on all these pages for instructions, on the bottom line, every page, just about every page, it says no penetration until they're 5, you lose the value of your product. Even though you're going to be tempted when you tickle
no
them,
penetration until they are 5?
Until they're 5, because then it loses the value of the product. They are teaching you how to teach these kids. When you tickle your kid, or you play with them, or you laugh, or whatever, you can, if you've never interviewed Russell, I can't think of his last name, but you interviewed Russell, he didn't know till he was 18 or 19 years old that not everybody went upstairs to the landlord to pay rent.
What does it mean?
That means his mom sent him to the landlord, and the landlord had his way with him 2 days a month, and then they got free rent. He thought every kid did that because he'd been doing it since he was 5 years old. Since 5, right? So how did he know that it was different? He was taught that from the time that he was a baby, or, a toddler. And so he didn't know. He'll tell his story, and he's works with human trafficking survivors. Like, he didn't know. Like, he didn't know. He thought every kid did that. Don't you oh, you want to come to baseball? No, I have to go pay rent today. Like, it was pay the rent. So when you think about these evil people getting a hold of our foster kids and teaching them not that or that way, or what they're teaching them because they want to create a valuable product, and the church won't step up and adopt these kids and give them a loving home or a forever home, we have to step up. There are 16.8 million self-identified believers in the state of California, and Gavin Newsom is our governor. I'm sorry. Let's just be real, right? And the biggest thing when I go speak to churches, and I'm not bagging on churches, I love the church and I love the body of Christ. I went down and spoke at a church one time in 2012 or 13, and the pastor goes, before she comes up, if you've been praying for this state for 20 years, come forward, and 10 years, 5 years, and eventually almost everybody there. And I really felt like I was supposed to ask this question. I go, really? I said, wow, this is pretty incredible. And I believe in prayer. I said, but how many of you guys ever put your name on a ballot? Nobody raised their hand. How many of you guys voted in the last election cycle, presidential election cycles in, Obama era? How many voted in the last election cycle? Maybe 10% raised their hand. We are the lowest propensity voting bloc.
Having the biggest power, potentially.
Having the biggest power, potentially, but we don't participate. Because, and I talk to pastors like, no, just share your heart. Don't talk about Republican or Democrat, I don't want to get involved in politics. Jesus walked the face of this earth in 33 years of his life in the most political era of his day. David sent Uriah to the front line so he could have an affair with Bathsheba and create a baby. You don't think that's political? Think about all the politics. Pharisees, Sadducees, the way they ruled. People died for doing certain things. You couldn't say certain words. It's all about rules and following rules and political. The Bible is political, and you don't want to talk about politics? Give me a break. Probably shouldn't have said that. I'm going to get in trouble.
Shannon, thank you. Thank you for everything that you do, especially for SB 14 and SB 1414.
Thank you.
I hope that you're going to introduce some new great bills or help the other great bills just to get passed and signed by a new governor in 2026.
Hope so.
I'm thankful for having you, and God bless you. God bless all your 5 children and 11 grandchildren. 11 grandchildren.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
You must be the biggest fan of Apple. You have to buy almost every iPhone every year for 11 grandchildren.
Only 2 have cell phones.
Yet. At this
only
moment,
2
yeah.
have cell phones.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless you too. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for coming to Bakersfield.